Here's another quick video, I suppose. Again, just another hour or so before I gotta go in and go to bed, and definitely won't be making any more videos for a few days. I gotta go to Salmon, Idaho again for work, so I'll be gone a few days. But I just couldn't help but come out and do something to get the motor process a little quicker. I slept on it last night, video I made on the gremlin, and I'm just going to use this motor as well in the AMX, and I'm going to use that more higher horsepower motor out of the van I got because it's got way less miles. This 6-liter has 360,000 miles on it, something like that. It had a lot of miles on it, so surprisingly it doesn't smoke or anything yet, but I'm sure it's going to be getting there. But it runs, like I said, decent, and I don't see anything down in the cylinders that I was concerned about, so we'll probably do a compression test on it. But the other reason I thought I would do another quick video, so, you know, I've made all my own wiring harnesses on every one of these LS swaps I've ever done. And this jumble of wiring, if you want to call it, is actually something I made to quick release everything. So the transmission harness, and I believe everything on that side of the engine is all quick release off of the main harness that goes into the car and under the glove box. And like I said, I did that because the transmission was such a pain in the butt. You know, you'd have all that wiring you had to drape around and mess with, so I just made it all quick release. That'll make getting the wiring out a lot easier. And I don't entirely remember, it's been a long time since I did this conversion, but I think that little plate, if I take that off, all I have to do is unplug the main computer connectors, and they'll actually slide through that, and then that whole harness will come out from inside the car, which unfortunately I'll have a hole there. I'll just have to make a cover plate for it. But yeah, I just thought I would show a little bit of this stuff here. And this wiring harness plug-a-rooney, I got 4 or 5 or 6 connectors in here holding all that together. So I was mentioning this was speed density tune. You know, all that is a predetermined map instead of having a mass airflow that it runs off of. I don't know and understand the entire basis on it, but I don't have a mass airflow. It's just a pre-written little schematic for the engine. Still has to have O2 sensors and all that stuff, and a map sensor. So I haven't had this intake off in quite some time. There's my very horribly cut throttle plate hole that I glued together. And that was done quite some time ago, so it wasn't very professionally done, but I got the job done. And the reason it's that big is we were actually running a 102 millimeter throttle body on this originally, but the 78 millimeter throttle body, the 3-bolt with an adapter, fits on this, and you know that's what we were running lastly for the last couple of years. But anyways, there's the the manifold pressure sensor map, I guess is what they want to call it. And then that was just a breather from the valve cover going to that. But that is all intake served us well. Never had any problems with it. I had to make some straps to run the injectors. This takes the really tall injectors, and all I had were the short injectors, so I had to make a little setup for it, but it's held up great all these years. But never had any problems with it. I forgot how heavy this thing is. It's pretty dang heavy. We'll have to get some new O-rings for it. But I didn't see too much going on. I mean, they're all kind of oily, more so on this side, and it could have been running a little bit more rich on this side. I don't know. It looks a little cleaner on that side. But all four rails on this side are a little black. And I quit standing in the light. All those are a little bit cleaner. But anyways, that's my little setup on that. So I got to take the radiator, all that fun stuff out, and pretty much the front dress of the motor, water pump. I don't think I got to pull the harmonic balancer off, but I did check my notes because yes, at one time I used to write notes and kind of keep a catalog of what I was doing for LS swaps in these AMCs, because I was trying to figure out how to manufacture just a whole swap kit, radiator, everything kind of included type of thing, but just too expensive and wasn't plausible for people to buy. I have to pull the transmission out and pull the motor out separately, and the reason why is because the cross member is too close. There's no amount of dangle you can get to clear the cross member to get the motor and transmission out in one swoop in the gremlin. You might be able to with like a V8 cross member, I don't know, but the 6-cylinder one, you can't do it. Which, it's not a big deal. I can reach, after I get all that wiring out of there, I can get to all the top bell housing bolts easy enough, and once I get the exhaust off, the other bell housing bolts are pretty simple. So it's really not that big of a deal, or at least it's not for me. I did mention I got to leave these headers for the gremlin, which they're not the greatest headers, but they do the job. And they are custom built to get around the cross member and all the crazy stuff, so they will stay on the next LS motor going in here. And we're doing a carburetor setup. Again, I mentioned that you can get a pretty neat timing cover that does a Ford distributor and a Ford mechanical fuel pump, I think. I can either do that or I can do the MSD LS box. The only problem with the LS box is you still have to do the laptop tuning on the timing, which I know there's people out there that's a breeze, way easier than messing with a distributor and a carburetor, but it's a lot simpler for me to mess with a distributor and a carburetor if I'm going to put a hot cam in the motor and be able to tune it that way. So it's really about the same amount of money. It's like $400 for the MSD box, and it's about $400 for an eBay special timing cover setup. So I mean, it's really, it doesn't matter. I just have to decide which one. Of course, the timing cover. I gotta buy a distributor, fuel pump, and probably some other odds and ends, but I don't remember if we replaced the timing chain in this motor. I'm pretty sure I put a double roller in it, but I don't remember. I know I put a new oil pump in this motor, and I know I put a new rear main seal. Well, I had to do the rear main seal later because it leaked everywhere. That wasn't fun. But anyways, the next steps, I don't know that I'll make another video on that, but I just want to show you before I tore it apart too far. Basically, it's pulling all the wiring off, so just all of that, and then I'm probably going to pull the computer and pull all the wiring out of it. This wiring harness here, all this runs is the headlights and a fan junction and the main power from the alternator. That all stays in the Gremlin. That isn't going anywhere, so that's kind of a nice little feature here. It just stays plug and play type of thing, and that'll work good for just the carburetor setup. And I'm probably going to rob these battery cables because we're supposed to be putting the battery in the trunk of the Gremlin, which I guess as long as it's in an enclosed box, because there's no firewall. I have to look at the rule book a little bit on that. Even the AMX, you can't see, but it's actually got a 1/4 inch, or probably not 1/4 inch, but 3/16, or yeah, 3/16 steel plate between the trunk and the cab, because this car was previously set up for Pikes Peak and all that stuff before I bought it. And so I never had an issue with the battery and that. And the junkyard Javelin, they never asked to look to see if there was a metal wall separating the battery from the compartment. And that could be in a certain time category too. Again, I got the rule book, I'd have to look. But I don't think we're going to be racing next year with the Gremlin, so I don't think it's going to really matter at this point. But my point is I'm probably going to take the battery cables. I'm probably not going to take the fuel line setup I got, because even if I get a mechanical fuel pump, if I want to do an electric fuel pump, I've already got a return line. It's already set up and ran under the chassis. And it's actually all metal line up to somewhere right there is the main and the return. So I may have to run full metal line, I don't know, but I'm gonna leave that. I gotta take the exhaust off. I already talked about taking all the radiator out and the front dress off of this. And once I get all that out, I mean, I might have an hour getting the transmission out, and then 10-15 minutes pulling the motor actually out of this. And then we can tuck the Gremlin over there for now. And then it can all go back into the AMX. And I do believe I'm going to put the battery back in the front here. And that big hole you see in AMX was my original air cleaner for my original LS motor for the supercharger. But I found out that sticking it under the fender well, it really got wet and sucked up a lot of dirt and stuff, so it wasn't a smart idea. And believe it or not, I actually have that piece of metal I cut out of there, and I should have put it in and welded it in before I painted the car, but like a fool I didn't. So I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do that. I'm thinking they make that epoxy weldless, where you don't weld, you can just epoxy your metal panels back on, and I might try to just epoxy it back on. But regardless, the battery's going to be over there covering all that, so it doesn't matter. Those two big holes right there is where the battery cables used to run to the trunk. So all right guys, well I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate you guys looking at the AMX and Gremlin video a little better, or a little more views anyways. I'm sorry about the Suburban and the truck videos, but that's just kind of what I had going on. So again, right now we're just going to be continuing on pulling out motors, and I think the next video you'll see, hopefully the motor's just out and we can kind of look at the motor condition and look at the oil pan and some of that stuff for you guys. And then maybe by this weekend, I don't know if I'll have time or not, but maybe we can have this and that transmission stuffed in the AMX, and that would just be a huge deal. Because when you got a drivetrain in a car, suddenly it becomes more motivating to work on it. So that's where we're at. Hopefully we'll see you this weekend.